Weekend's Jazz Fest with Alex Navarro and Sharon Montgomery of the American Federation of Musicians, Houston. I'm Celeste Díaz Schurman. We'll also talk with comedian actor Felipe Esparza, who will join us to discuss his At My Leisure tour right here in Houston tonight. Plus, we also weigh in on the top headlines of the day, from the Texas school voucher bill to Texas lawmakers looking to ban the use of face masks during protests, and so much more. And we want your thoughts, questions, and concerns. Give us a call at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. All this and more right here on Hello Houston, right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Ukrainian capital is observing an official day of mourning for the lives lost when Russia carried out drone and missile attacks on Kyiv early yesterday. Officials say at least 12 people were killed and as many as 90 were injured in the assault. In an interview with CBS's Face the Nation, the foreign minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, was asked about the civilian toll and why the Kremlin continued its attacks even though Ukraine says it's ready for a ceasefire.
If this was a target used by the Ukrainian military, the Ministry of Defense, the commanders in the field have the right to attack them.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that he will support a peace deal but put forth by his allies, but he is firmly opposed to official recognition of Russian control of Crimea. However, eager to mediate a peace deal, President Trump says Crimea will stay with Russia. Both Trump and Zelensky are among the world leaders expected to be in Rome tomorrow for Pope Francis's funeral. The Pope, who died Easter Monday at the age of 88, will not be laid to rest in the grottos of the Vatican, as has been the tradition. He wanted to be entombed at the St. Mary Major Basilica, housing an icon of the Virgin Mary that Francis visited 126 times during his papacy. NPR's Ruth Sherlock has more.
This church of St. Mary Major has been in Rome for 16 centuries. According to the tradition, the Virgin Mary inspired the construction of this church, appearing in a dream to an aristocrat Giovanni and to Pope Liberius, and she asked for a church in her honor in a place that she would miraculously reveal. The miracle of the snows, hail in August that landed on this hill, is recalled every year, and during the liturgy there's a shower of white petals that falls from the ceiling. Ruth Sherlock, NPR News, Rome.
The Trump administration is restoring funding to a landmark study of women's health. Here's NPR's Rob Stein.
The Department of Health and Human Services says the administration is reversing a decision to slash funding for the Women's Health Initiative, which has been following tens of thousands of women for decades. An HHS spokesman says the decision was made because the National Institutes of Health, which funds the study, was able to exceed savings by cutting other research contracts. The decision to cut the project had shocked medical researchers because the study has been responsible for a series of landmark discoveries about women's health. Rob Stein, NPR News.
U.S. stocks are mixed this hour. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 142 points at 39,950. You're listening to NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. A bill creating education savings accounts is heading to Governor Greg Abbott's desk. The Texas Senate yesterday agreed to the House's amended version of Senate Bill 2, which creates the billion-dollar school voucher program. The Texas Newsroom's Blaze Gainey has more on the controversial program.
The House made several changes to the Senate's version of the Education Savings Account bill that led many to believe it would need to go through a detailed negotiation process in a conference committee between the chambers. But in a surprising turn of events, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick proposed the state Senate adopt the bill as is. They did so on a 19-12 vote, sending SB 2 to Governor Greg Abbott. It's a no-brainer the governor will sign it. He's been pushing lawmakers to pass the legislation since 2023. The bill creates a $1 billion school voucher program, allowing families to use taxpayer funds for private school tuition and other education expenses, like textbooks, transportation, and tutoring. I'm Blaze Gainey in Austin.
Stay here for more analysis of that voucher bill and what it could mean for students in our city. That's all ahead here on Hello Houston. Meanwhile, hospitality workers in the Houston area are seeking a raise. A union representing workers at hotels, restaurants, and banquets in the area are asking for a $23 minimum wage for workers connected to the tourism industry. Michelle Gray is a barista at Starbucks at the George Bush Intercontinental Airport and joined Houston Matters earlier this morning.
Currently now I make $16 an hour, and rent increases every time. Food is going up. It's hard. It's extremely hard.
She says her rent is now $2,100 and she has 4 children. Houston First Corporation, which tracks visitation in the region, says that more than 54 million people visited Houston last year. That's 6% more than the year before and nearly 10% more than before the pandemic. Opponents of a minimum wage increase in the past have cited concerns of job losses. For more news, make sure to head over to our website. That, of course, is houstonpublicmedia.org. I'm Matt Harrop, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Hello, Houston.
-1.
Thanks for joining us. Yes, our co-host Ernie is out today.
Well, his mom, he's his mom's primary caregiver.
Yeah.
She has dementia. She fell. She hit her head. That's all we know. There's a smiling picture of her.
Yes, we did receive a beautiful photo of Miss Adele, and she was smiling, and so.
But they're at the ER.
But they are
basically.
But it's been a long.
But he's watching. Hi, Ernie. He's watching.
Hi, Ernie. It's been a long morning for them, so we are thinking of them. But today, you just get Frank and I.
I mean, it's us.
It's us. But yes, we want to thank you for joining us, and hello to our YouTube viewers. We are worldwide at youtube.com/Houston Public Media. Be sure to like and subscribe at hellohouston.org. And we, as always, welcome you to join the conversation. Give us a call at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hey, it's the weekend. It looks like nice weather, although it's going to be warm. Might see a shower before 4 o'clock today in spots. But then a dry weekend, highs in the mid-80s, lows in the low 70s. Feeling like summer.
It's coming. It's coming fast.
But with a lot going on, it's probably a good weekend. Despite the fact that it's a little humid, it's the weekend. You want nice weather, you're going to get it.
And there is a lot going on, and we're going to talk about that later on in the show during our last-minute plans.
Yes, from the American Federation of Musicians, Houston, Alex Navarro and Sharon Montgomery filling us in on this weekend's Jazz Fest.
The Jazz Festival.
They'll be here in studio with us. But hey, let's dive in.
Okay, let's get into our topics. After years and multiple special legislative sessions, Governor Greg Abbott has been campaigning hard for this moment, and it will now come full circle. The school voucher bill is headed to the governor's desk for approval. The bill allows the state to give parents state tax dollars to send their kids to private schools. The Senate and the House were expected to negotiate parts of the legislation. However, in a surprising turn of events, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick proposed that the Senate adopt the House version of the bill as is. And of course, you can give us a call on this topic at 713-440-8870.
Absolutely. We have State Senator Molly Cook. She's been fairly vocal against the school voucher bill. She represents District 15. She's on line with us currently. Senator Cook, welcome to Hello Houston.
Well, we can't hear Senator Cook, so we're going to wait till we can get her.
Let's okay, because I want to make the point that by saying let's just adopt the House bill, there was no discussion about it. The Senate and the House were expected to negotiate parts of it, but it was like No, we're done. So the ESA is going to allow parents to receive around $10,000 or 85% of the statewide average amount of funding per student annually. They can put it towards school tuition, educational expenses like pre-K books, tutoring.
Right. And this has been one of the very polarizing and controversial bills for a very long time in Texas education and history. So, Molly, are you there?
Can y'all hear me now?
I sure can. Hi, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank y'all so much for having me on.
We're glad you're here, and I know there's a lot to unpack. So let's start with what do you see, first of all, as the version of the bill that is going to be signed by the governor?
I think, the most important thing is to start with the fact that public dollars remain in public schools and that this policy is flawed kind of from the bottom up. This is a program that's going to be accessible to a maximum of somewhere around 100,000 students in Texas when there's 5.4 million kids in public schools.
Okay, so, why only 100,000 out of 5 million?
So this program is capped at $1 billion, which arguably is a good thing. But that means that there will possibly be a lottery system. If more students apply for the program, then there's money for. And so it'll go to a lottery and basically will allow people to apply to the program and then hopefully have a chance at maybe getting some money knocked off of private school tuition for these students, when we know that private schools do not always have the resources to meet the needs of kids with disabilities, and that there's just a lot of kids in public schools who deserve our full investment. After the Senate voted out SB 2, the House did a couple of tweaks to it. One of the most important and unconstitutional tweaks is that students who are undocumented can no longer benefit from this program. But as some of my colleagues pointed out, we don't hold a child accountable, for a parent's actions. And public education is supposed to be free and accessible to every Texas student. And it also removed the provision where legislators would be able to benefit from this. So the Senate said, we want to avoid conflicts of interest. We want this to look above board. So legislators and their families should not be able to apply to this program. That provision was stripped out, and the governor will sign a version that allows even legislators to get this money for their kids.
So, Senator Cook, looking at the bill, you mentioned the different provisions and things that were taken out and the tweaks that were made. Why do you think it has been passed now at this point? Or why do you feel like it actually has made it, even though it made those tweaks, everybody came together? Why do you still think it's so controversial?
Look, for over 70 years, this legislature fought off powerful lobbyists and special interests and wealthy out-of-state donors who have been fighting for this program for so long. And I think it's pretty clear that there were decisions from statewide leadership throughout the last couple of election cycles that flipped seats. And after folks voted their district and voted against vouchers, they lost their elections. And so we came back to a legislature that was no longer able to hold the line. And Democrats did not vote for this.
Well, let me ask you,
that was
Senator,
very clear.
Let me ask you this. It seems like more and more nationally, as well as at the state level, politicians are trying to get into the textbooks and the curriculum of public education and even private education. So if private schools begin to accept these vouchers, will that give the state the state of Texas sort of an allowance to rule what's in their library and rule what they're going to teach and their textbooks are going to teach?
That's a great question. And that was something that, I'll really shout out Senator Jose Menendez. And if you go back and watch the original floor debate on SB 2 back at the very beginning of this session, Democrats proposed close to 40 amendments to SB 2 to try to get some of those guardrails in. The idea, of course, being if you're taking public dollars, you should be held to the same accountability standards as public schools. But really, they've maintained a pretty good firewall there, and these private schools are not going to be held to those same accountability standards.
We're speaking with State Senator Molly Cook. She represents District 15, and we welcome you to the conversation. You can give us a call at 713-440-8870. Senator Cook, I have to ask you, are there any silver linings to this new bill? Is there anything that you think Texans are going to benefit from?
Well, some of my colleagues said it best yesterday. We believe that this program is flawed. We know the data from other states do not show that any measurable, valuable outcomes really improve persistently when voucher programs are enacted. That being said, I'm an emergency room nurse, and my job is to save lives and to help people benefit as much as they can from every policy that comes out of this state. So I hope that, some kid is able to make use of it and get the best out of it. But the bottom line is we should be coming back in 2 years to look at the data and decide if this worked or not. And ultimately, what we need to be doing from the state level is raising the basic allotment.
And so if the $1 billion gets used up, which I'm assuming it will go pretty quickly, what do we do then? Just double it?
That is where the lottery system comes in play. So some students who will apply for this potentially will not get it. And it'll remain to be seen kind of how this program gets implemented, what kind of organizations and vendors jump in to be that middleman. Some of the rulemaking is up to the comptroller and how that money gets spent and how they advertise. So all of that remains to be seen. But the bottom line is there's not enough money to give this program to every Texas child.
But it does include children with disabilities as well as homeschool children, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that's at least some silver lining.
Right. The problem with that, though, is that it would be a true silver lining if we knew that these private schools had the room available and the equipment and the capacity to handle a variety of disabilities. But there's no reason to believe that that's the case, especially in areas where there just aren't even private schools, which is a large, large percentage of the state.
And are there any stipulations when we are looking, now that we're talking specifically more about the private school, where private schools have to have certain requirements to make sure that somebody's not just opening one?
Again, some of that really remains to be seen. There were a couple of guardrails in the Senate version that would especially limit things like online pop-up schools, making sure that the schools have a commitment to Texas, have a brick and mortar here. And some of those guardrails did come out in the House version. And there was concern expressed by some of my Republican rural colleagues as well on the floor yesterday about that.
I know that there was some criticism saying that most kids can't afford private school, even with the help of $10,000. So you're basically throwing a 10-foot rope down a 12-foot well, and it's just not going to do anything. So this ultimately is going to benefit rich families, and by that I mean above the poverty line and already paying $10,000, $20,000, if not more, for private school. This just sort of gives them a cushion. Is that correct?
And well, yes, sir, well above the poverty line. I mean, some of these families are making, well over $100,000 a year that could still apply and qualify for a voucher. And like you're saying, I hope somebody does benefit from it. I would never want to spend $1 billion of taxpayer money and hope that it fails, right? Nobody would want that. But the problem is this is not a solution for 5.4 million kids. This is a solution. It's a partial solution for a few children and a few families. And we have the tools and the infrastructure and the constitutional mandate to just fully fund and support our public schools and raise the basic allotment.
Now, I do have to say that when you say just a few students, I would imagine that this will benefit a group of Texans who would love to send their kids to private school, but they can't. It's just not quite, they don't quite meet that, but it will help them. And so when we're looking at it, do you think that perhaps it has gotten obviously it's gotten very political, that we are now marginalizing a larger group that could benefit from it?
You just have to think about where all of the circles in the Venn diagram overlap. Where is there a student who is in public school where the parent is willing to, complete this paperwork, get signed into this program, eventually, win the lottery process. So that's one circle. The parent wants to move the child out of public school and into private school. And then another circle is there a private school in the area that the parent is able to then get that child to? And then the next circle, of course, is that private school able to meet that child's needs, depending on what they are. And so every time you add a circle to that, your population shrinks and your impact shrinks. But of course, we'll see in the next couple of years. I'm very excited that one of the provisions that did not come out was the reporting requirements. Excellent. And so we are going to be able to look at data in 2 years and determine, was this effective? How many people used it? Where are they coming from? What parts of the state are benefiting? And are there parts of the state who are actually losing out because of the program? And is it worth it, and should we continue it?
All right, Senator, we have a call from Danny in the northeast part of Harris County. Danny, what do you have to ask the senator?
Hey, Senator Cook. Danny Norris. We know each other for quite a while now. First of all, thank you for your efforts and trying to address this. My point was that, as Senator Cook well knows, Texas has woefully underfunded its students, and that's one of my biggest issues with this bill is that while Texas, I think, one of the bottom 5 or 10 states as far as funding per student, we are now giving money to the private sector. And as mentioned already, to typically families who can already afford it, and they can just add this as a discount to their already flush bank account. Basically, they're getting a discount for their kid to go to school. But if you're in Houston, where the cost is about almost 3 times, was up $25,000 or $30,000 per student for the average private school here, that's not going to be at all affordable for most families. So this is going to be typically the families that can already afford it. So I appreciate Senator Cook and her effort and all the efforts of those who are doing it. I suggest all Houstonians pay attention and put people in legislators that will do better.
Thank you,
Danny,
Dan.
thank you. Some kudos to the senator.
Yes, and so we also did get an email right here for the senator. Chad asks, so does this bill eliminate school jurisdictions? Can families now choose any public school they want to attend, no matter where they live? I keep hearing about private schools and the vouchers, but shouldn't this bill also allow that?
That's such a good question, because this program keeps being branded as school choice. The reality is that Texas already has school choice in a lot of districts. And so we have different types of schools. There are magnet schools. We have charter schools, which are kind of semi-public schools. So we have school choice in place in Texas. There are also a couple of bills that are moving to the Senate floor soon about the ability to, pull your kid out of public school easily and transfer them to another one, especially as it relates to bullying. So there's a lot of conversation around school choice. This is specifically a program to take $1 billion of public money and put it in private schools.
And I keep saying, if I was funding something, I would want a say in it, right? I mean, as parents, we often use that tact. If I'm going to buy the car for you, then I'm going to control to some degree where you get to go in it. And this just looks to me like if private schools start accepting public money, then the state legislature is going to be able to get their hands in what they're teaching.
You're so right. And that was a lot of the fear, actually, that we received feedback from either private school parents or homeschooling parents that said, we don't want vouchers because we don't want to open the door to government interference, basically, in the type of education we've enjoyed for our kids. And I personally proposed amendments that would have required budget transparency from private institutions accepting public dollars.
But they don't have to, right?
Not pass.
The private schools don't have to take this voucher money. It's not going to be forced on them.
Right. You have to register as there'll be vendors to oversee, kind of be the middlemen, and then these private institutions have to be, accredited in some way and recognized and signed up for the program.
Okay.
We have a call from Roberto from the Museum District. Hello, Roberto. What is your question for Senator Cook?
Okay. This senator, is she Democrat or Republican? Which is she?
Are you a Democrat or a Republican?
Democrat.
A Democrat. And I will say that okay. Lieutenant Governor called her out for her objections.
Okay. I am a retired teacher who taught inner city schools in HISD, and this is a much needed initiative. Now, it's not perfect. Believe me, I know that. But here's part of the problem within HISD. Part of the problem, big problem, the teacher union. The teachers union supports that teacher. If they pay the dues, they're going to support them. One example, math teacher would walk the halls, inner city school, black inner city school. I was there. The union got him transferred. I happened to transfer to the same school he went to. He did the same thing. So one problem that's being addressed inadvertently, perhaps, is the union. You don't deal with the teachers union. That's a big national issue for me. And I'm a retired school teacher. Now, the other thing is this, I'm going to suggest to the senator, drop advanced placement in high schools. The best teachers teach advanced placement. We don't need that. They're just going to save money when they go to college. They can go to junior college like I did. So there's still much to do to improve the situation. Our inner city schools, minorities, must be addressed. There's a good first step. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. Senator Cook, what are your thoughts on Roberto's comments?
I really appreciate them. And I think the most important thing that I heard that we both agree on is that public school is not perfect in the first place.
Yeah.
And especially when we talk about HISD, when we talk about the takeover, when we talk about vouchers, we have to recognize that our elected board, that our system did fail students in Houston ISD. We have to acknowledge that. And those students were overwhelmingly Black and brown students. I would argue that this is a very inefficient use of dollars to try to solve that problem.
Okay.
And those problems can be solved. We've seen other districts around Houston that have had really, really great success and responsible stewardship. You can make progress with those schools that were having a tough time in HISD without a state takeover and without a voucher program. And the second thing that I heard from Roberto that I absolutely agree with is that junior college is incredibly important. And actually, this legislature has led in a really, really fantastic way on community colleges and two-year institutions over the last couple of sessions. And so we've got a lot of high value coming out of those not four-year institutions or not bachelor's degrees.
Okay. We're going to have to leave it there. State Senator Molly Cook, I wanted to thank you for being an ER nurse. Shout out to all the ER workers. They save lives every single day. So thank you for that. And thank you for being here on Hello Houston.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Thanks for covering this.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we've got some cool cats in the house with the American Federation of Musicians Houston, Alex Navarro, and Sharon Montgomery chatting about this weekend's Jazz Fest. And we're also taking your calls on any of today's topics at 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
It can be hard to stay informed about what's happening in our city, our state, and across the country. That's why Houston Public Media makes it easier.
Everything you hear on News 88.7 is powered by you, not advertisers. 80% of our funding comes from our Houston community.
That's what makes public media different. It's community funded and always here for you when you need it.
Join that community now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Hello, I'm Nikki Beatty. Join me for this week's Arts Hour from the BBC. With two Oscar winners, British actor Tilda Swinton and Indian film composer A.R. Rahman. We'll hear from the New Zealand director James Ashcroft, French filmmaker Francois Ozon, the Nigerian music star Magix, and I'll be talking to writer Funmi Feto. That's all in the Arts Hour from the BBC.
Tonight at 9 on News 88.7.
I'm Christopher Kimball from Milk Street Radio. There's a hot new trend in beer, and let's just say double IPAs have been replaced by something much lighter.
It is literally a pint of beer foam.
A long and curious history of beer this week on Milk Street Radio from PRX.
Tune in Sunday at 1 on News 88.7.
Pope Francis brought in a new era for the Catholic Church during his time in the Vatican, though his leadership often caused tension with more conservative religious and political leaders. Now that he's passed, what will be the lasting impact of his influence? Plus, we'll discuss the chaos and controversy surrounding Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon. I'm David Green. Hope you'll join us for the next Left, Right, and Center.
And now back to Hello Houston. To share your thoughts on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manouse. Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Welcome back.
I know. Without Ernie today, his mom took a spill.
Yeah.
She's in the ER. He's with her. Everything's okay. She was smiling.
Yes.
But he's out for the day.
He's out for the day.
Watching us on YouTube, as can you.
That's right.
Yes.
You can head to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Houston Public Media. You can also like and subscribe us at hellohouston.org. And as always, you are more than welcome to join us in this conversation.
Yep, 713-440-8870.
Or email us, talk@hellohouston.org.
All right, so this Sunday, big day for the jazz fans out there. The Houston Professional Musicians Association will be celebrating Jazz Appreciation Month by putting on its 4th annual Jazz Fest at Post Houston downtown, which is an amazing venue. This will feature over 150 musicians, a multitude of styles, from modern to big band jazz to funk and swing jazz. But I don't know what else is going on here because it is so big this year.
It is. We're doing a month's worth of music in one day.
So we gotta turn up your mics. So we're going to do that. So let me welcome you to the event. Alex Navarro, president of the American Federation of Musicians Houston, and Sharon Montgomery, who I've known since the 80s, secretary treasurer of American Federation of Musicians Houston. Alex and Sharon, there are your mics. Hello, good morning, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us.
We're so glad you're here.
Houston.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about this. What's going on?
I just want to say I love jazz. So this was very exciting for me to see all of the different forms of jazz that you all have. Because a lot of times people will like avant-garde, or they like big band, or they like smooth jazz.
Chuck Mangione.
We have everything, and you're absolutely right. There is such a wide spectrum of jazz and jazz lovers here in Houston. So we're opening the day with a brass band, a band that we're really proud of, called the Magnolia Brass Players, made up of some of the finest brass musicians from the Houston Symphony and other orchestras. Then we have original groups and all the listings that Frank gave. We're ending, though, our premier headlining group is a tribute to Houston's own Joe Sample, who sadly passed away about 10 years ago now. And this is an all-star tribute led by giants here of Houston, Kyle Turner, Andre Hayward, and music directed by Joe's son, Nick Sample.
Wow.
So how many people are you expecting? And where is it, on the roof or is it down below? Or
yes.
Is it really?
It is on the roof.
Well, then you need a weather report. That's what you need.
And I just checked before the show. Sunny skies for Sunday.
Yep.
So all of our large bands will be on the roof, what they call the outpost, which you can't get a better view of downtown skyline from there. And then downstairs at the what they call the Z Atrium, Eden Plant, coffee shop, plant shop, is where our smaller groups will be, vocalists, quintets, etc.
This is from noon to 7?
Correct.
I just want to do a commercial for sunscreen. Make sure you take sunscreen. That sun is sharp on that roof. So Sharon, what's your role in all this?
I heard the cats.
Yep. And you're like, I got to be a part of this.
That's right, because I was born bossy. And I
same, Sharon, same.
There you go. I'll be there to take care of our musicians as they check in, make sure I get their parking taken care of, and then generally just they can cry on my shoulder and do whatever.
You're the den mother.
I'm the den mother.
When you all were thinking of putting this festival on and you were looking at jazz and the history of jazz, was there anything that stuck out to you when you were thinking about bringing it to Houston? And this is actually the 4th year that y'all are doing it.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a layered question. When this started in April of 2022, and all of these musicians are being paid at union scale wages, including leader pay, cartage, doubling, every premium that would be accounted for a professional musician at Wortham, at Jones, at Hobby Center, etc. But all of this is generously funded by the Music Performance Trust Fund, which is an organization that pairs with the American Federation of Musicians. So I took office in January 21, which we all remember where we all were at that time.
It was a tough time
and
for artists across all industries.
If I can say that, yeah, artists were selfishly, saying probably the most affected. And so these funds were made available by the Federation for exactly this, musicians performing for the community. And so I seized on this and have been extracting every penny of it. And it's just grown. The first year was, humbly in our parking lot, in our rehearsal hall, 50 musicians maybe.
Wow.
I mean, we generously had like Councilmember Cisneros popped in and Mocha was there, but it has just grown exponentially and is now, I think, the largest jazz festival that Houston hosts.
And why jazz?
Well, April is Jazz Appreciation Month.
It's April.
It's
It-
April.
oh,
Jazz
I knew that.
Appreciation
I didn't know that.
Or
Month.
Jam for short.
Jam.
It's Jam.
Jazz
So why
Appreciation
does
Month.
jazz need an appreciation month?
That's a good question.
Well, I think
Started in New Orleans. Well, New Orleans Jazz Festival was always in April.
Yes. Well, yeah, because April has been designated Jazz Appreciation Month for
Now, and I don't say
years.
that tritely. I mean, I absolutely love
Yeah.
jazz and think I have a great appreciation for
Well,
it.
I think specifically the Musicians Union decided to celebrate and dedicate these funds because jazz musicians are often or exclusively freelance musicians where they're piecing together a gig. Yeah, maybe they're playing Sunday, maybe Friday night they're playing a cocktail hour, they're doing a church gig Sunday. You know, they're making all these gigs add up. And especially back in 20 and 21, you know, those gigs had dried up.
And so y'all are really bringing the heavy hitters to Houston.
100%.
And I saw something about the Houston Women's Chamber Orchestra.
Yes.
Also being a part of this. Tell me about that.
Yes. So this is an orchestra that we're really proud that we founded 2 years ago now. Just like Jazz Appreciation Month, you know, March is Women's Appreciation or
Yes.
International Women's Month.
We should appreciate women.
Absolutely. So,
She jumped on that.
So last year, we did jump on that, and we formed the Houston Women's Chamber Orchestra.
Beautiful.
All women players playing music by female composers led by women. And so they performed last year at the Post for our women's event. To try to keep the momentum going, they are performing with a female vocalist, jazz vocalist. I'm part of that group. Actually, I'm playing piano, and I did the arrangements for the string orchestra. But we're excited to feature.
Is that Natalie Broussard? Or
Natalie Broussard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah, check her out. She's going down at 6 o'clock.
So
let's remind everybody who we're talking to, Alex Navarro and Sharon Montgomery, because this Jazz Fest is Sunday, in case you're just catching up with us. It's this Sunday at Post Houston at 401 Franklin. It's from noon to 7. And it has, I mean, Joe Sample is being honored in the memory of Joe Sample.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, how many jazz musicians are going to be on
About
hand?
150, 12 bands, upstairs, downstairs, free, family friendly.
Free.
Oh,
That
it's
is
free? Because we
incredible.
don't really talk about that on public radio, but when it's free, we can talk about it. That's
Exactly.
awesome.
It's completely free to the public.
So you just show up.
Just
show up.
I do want to touch on the fact that Joe Sample's son, you mentioned
Yes.
that. Tell us a little bit about that. And that's quite emotional.
Absolutely. And well, Nick is like a brother to me. He and I first met in Los Angeles. We were both members of the American Federation of Musicians out there in LA, Local 47, doing a lot of recording work. And Nick and I played in a pop rock band, you know, like a lot of people moving out to Los Angeles. You know, we were about 3.5 minutes away from stardom. And so I got to work a lot with Nick in recording. And actually, I met Joe obviously through Nick, and Joe and I did a record together. Well, in support of Rod Stewart, I did string arrangements for Rod, and Joe played piano on it. It was Volume 5 of Rod's Great American Songbook series. But met Nick there, and Nick toured with his father for the last season of Joe's touring, and then Joe moved down here to Clear Lake, and then sadly passed away. And
Nick's still in where's Nick?
Nick lives in Detroit. His wife's family is from that area, so he's decided. But out of respect to Houston and his father, he's decided to transfer his union membership to Houston, even though he's out of Detroit. And keeping that legacy, he wanted to wait and not jump on the bandwagon of cashing in per se on the legacy of Joe Sample, and just kind of wanted to wait and do it right. And he's been doing these performances in New York and LA, in Detroit, and in Houston.
And now you're going to get to hear it in Houston.
Absolutely.
Yes.
On Sunday.
And let me add that Nick has got the top Houston jazz guys for this tribute. So he's got Andre Hayward on trombone. He's got Kyle Turner on saxophone. These are all Houston musicians that are backing him on this, and it's going to be spectacular.
I saw David Craig on bass.
Yes.
And Mark Simmons on drums.
Mark Simmons, yeah, he's playing with the women's orchestra with Natalie. I mean, Mark has toured. His credits include George Benson, Al Jarreau. So,
you know, we always think of Austin as the what is it?
They're the cool place.
No, the
we're cooler
concerts,
now.
like the live concert. But what is Houston where does Houston fall in that when
Well,
we're looking at the concert scene?
I'm glad you brought that up, and that's a sensitive subject, I think, for native Houstonian musicians, as I am, and I'm a proud Houstonian and proud, Houston musician. Yes, Austin is an amazing city and has tremendous live music, but they talk about ACL.
Live music.
Well, they talk about ACL and South by Southwest, but what are those festivals? Yeah, for those couple of weeks out of the year, they're bringing people from all over the world, but how is Austin the rest of the year?
A lot of traffic, I'll say that.
A lot of traffic. And also one thing I will put Houston above Austin and Dallas 100% is our orchestras, our arts culture, our symphony, our opera, our ballet, our Broadway productions.
At the end of the day, we have it all here.
We have it all.
Arts culture, and then you get to sports. We have every sports team. We have all these venues. It really is. There are very few cities that have it all, and we're one of them. I think there are about 4, and we're one of them.
And our union represents all kinds of diversity as far as music is concerned, because it's all here in Houston.
That's wonderful. Okay, I want to give you a plug one more time. The Jazz Fest is free. 12 noon to 7 p.m. at the Post downtown at 401 Franklin. So just show up. Don't forget your sunscreen.
Yes, Frank.
And if you bring an umbrella, you might bring an umbrella just to keep the sun off your back. I've been up there when it's hot.
Yeah.
It's hot up there. So make sure you take care of yourself.
Okay,
Stay hydrated.
Alex, it looks like this is obviously a really big event. It's very exciting. We want here on Hello Houston to always give our listeners and viewers a little insider tip. What are the insider tips? Where should people stop by? Is there anything that you think definitely don't miss out on this?
Well, definitely don't miss the Joe Sample thing.
Yeah.
Not to promote myself, but I'll say Natalie and the women's orchestra, because it's kind of has a Diana Krall vibe, where there's a female vocalist with strings. So that's something different that you don't expect in Jazz Festival. Who else would you highlight?
Well, oh my gosh, it's so hard to choose because the variety.
Yeah, that's jazz.
It's an incredible variety of music. So if you come on Sunday, be ready to bounce back and forth between Eden Plant, that stage, on the main level, and upstairs, back and forth. You cannot lose.
You'll get your steps in for sure.
Yeah, and the Post also has great food, and it's just a very cool venue within itself.
Well, and we're very grateful to the Post. They're setting up more vendors on the rooftop that they typically don't have for all of the performances. So you can stay up there and be fed, be hydrated.
Yep, hydration's important.
That's right. Alex Navarro is the president of the American Federation of Musicians Houston, and Sharon Montgomery is the secretary-treasurer of the American Federation of Musicians Houston. Houston Professional Musicians Association 4th Annual Jazz Fest is taking place at Post Houston this Sunday. Thanks for joining us both on Hello Houston.
Thank you,
Thanks for having us.
Coming up next, we'll talk with comedian Felipe Esparza Esperanza ahead of his performance at NRG Arena. Stay with us. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Hi, I'm Craig Cohen, the host of Houston Matters. Join me weekday mornings at 9 or at your leisure on your podcast feed for your daily guide to the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston. From politics to the economy, energy to the environment, healthcare to education to transportation and beyond. If it matters to Houston, it matters to us. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts or live on the air weekdays at 9 a.m. right here on News 88.7.
You have the right to know what's happening, not just the news headlines, but the context that helps you understand what every story means for you and your community.
Houston Public Media makes that possible, bringing you independent news that's always free. No paywalls, no barriers, just facts.
Your support helps protect your access to well-researched reporting.
Support your right to stay informed by giving at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or 888-909-0887.
Next time on the New Yorker Radio Hour, I'll talk with Senator Cory Booker about the first 100 days of the Trump administration.
Trump has taken a page out of China's book, and they have taken a page out of our book. China attacked their universities in their cultural revolution. And what has Trump done in 100 days? Is he's declared a cultural revolution of his own.
Cory Booker, next time on the New Yorker Radio Hour.
Coming up on a special edition of 10,000 Good Songs, we pay tribute to two artists who died in March of 2025. Singer-songwriter Jesse Colin Young and soul-singing star Angie Stone.
I wish I didn't miss you anymore.
We remember Jesse Colin Young and Angie Stone coming here real soon. Saturday evening at 7 on News 88.7.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello,
Welcome
Houston.
back. Yep, hello,
I mean,
Houston.
this is a jazzy Friday and about to get funny.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we just want to remind everybody today Ernie's out for the day, but we do have another friend with us here. Felipe Esparza is a stand-up comedian and actor, best known for his many stand-up specials and for winning NBC's Last Comic Standing back in 2010, which played a major role in his jumpstart to his comedy career. You may also recognize him from his recurring roles in series such as The Eric Andre Show, Superstore, Gentified, and for being the host of the popular podcast What's Up, Fool?, which he's been running for 10 years. He is also currently on his At My Leisure tour, which makes a stop right here in Houston tonight at the NRG Arena. And he's also currently with us right now.
Yay.
Felipe, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hello, Houston.
But I say, you are actually from Sinaloa, Mexico.
Yes.
But you grew up in California. How did that shape your sense of humor?
It shaped growing up in where I grew up, Boyle Heights. It's a suburb of East LA. And I grew up in predominantly Latino and African-American and Vietnamese neighborhood. So our neighborhood, I grew up in a project, so growing up, I tell people that I grew up in a gated community. The windows were gated, the back door was gated.
Okay, so clearly,
I get it.
Clearly, you found inspiration from when you were a child. But how did you really get into stand-up? When did you really feel like, okay, I could do this?
You know what? Like most people will just tell you, the honest answer is I just ran out of things that I wasn't good at.
well, were you the class clown? You'd strike me as the guy that was always there for a laugh.
I wish I could say that I was the class clown, but I wasn't. I used to open up for him. The class clown would say something privately and get 5 people laughing, and then I would repeat it and get the whole class laughing, and they kick me out of the class. So I was a hack.
Yes. You need to go to the hall. Go to the hall.
Okay, so I do have to ask you this. So you were on the Eric Andre Show, and yes. I also saw you on a couple of your other interviews. And so you know a little bit about interviewing and the way it's supposed to go. What did you enjoy on that show most about torturing your guests?
The Eric Andre Show, I just loved that I just was getting paid to just stand there and not say much.
And if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It's very funny.
It's a very hard show to film because we have to hide our celebrity guests from the whole cast. And even, I don't know who the guest is sometimes. And I don't come in until we do like a run of the show. And we interview the guest, imagine, for 45 minutes. And we only cut it to 2 minutes for TV. Because our show is 12. We don't get the whole show. They only give us 12 minutes. So it's a short show, 2 episodes, 12 minutes each.
Wow.
I noticed in your stand-up, your vibe behind you, the big, I guess, the curtain, the billboard, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of like ours, It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it looks to me like maybe you have your citizenship card, or just so everybody knows.
I have my passport, my citizenship, my birth certificate, and I have my neighborhood where I grew up. In a photo album. So there's a picture of my father with 4 kids, and there's our group passport they gave us because we were underage. So in our passport, it had my mother and my 2 little brothers on the same passport. So yeah, we were carpooling passports.
Yes, that's funny.
I mean, you've come quite quite the way. I mean, now you're sitting here, you're touring the U.S., you've been on national TV. Did you ever think that that was going to happen in your life?
Never. I never thought I was going to be on Hello Houston today.
But here we are.
Here we are.
Billingsley.
So what's on your bit tonight in Houston? What can Houstonians expect from your show?
All new
keep it clean.
material. All new material. My last special, Raging Fool, is out. And my previous special, Bad Decisions, Malas Decisiones, I'm the first comic to release 2 specials in 2 different languages. I did one in Spanish and I did one in English.
Well, now I have to know, are you funnier in Spanish or are you funnier in English?
I had more fun in Spanish, but I started realizing that people say you don't speak great English, but then I realized after that special that I've been messing up Spanish too. So I mess up 2 languages every day in my life.
Yeah.
I think, I have a friend who's from Romania originally, and he can... Right. And he makes jokes in English. I think when you have 2 languages and you can be funny in both of them, I think that takes a really smart guy. Yeah. I think you've got it going up there because it's hard to make people laugh.
Frank thinks you're smart.
Yes,
I do.
thank you.
I think you're very smart. I loved your bit about, it was a quick line. He was watching his friend get beaten up. And he's like, you're supposed to back me up. He's like, oh, they said run to the back. So funny. Your YouTube stuff is hysterical.
And my first joke I ever wrote was my dad would walk around the neighborhood and collect furniture and bring it home and fix it with duct tape. One time he brought a television home. I said, whoa, that TV has 500 channels. When I got older, it didn't have 500 channels. It was a knob from the oven.
We're speaking with Felipe Esparza, who's a comedian and actor and a host of the podcast What Up Fool. Felipe will be performing, is it tonight, Felipe?
Yeah, tonight.
Tonight. Okay.
The Energy.
So where else
Arena.
have you been? And tell us what you're thinking of Houston so far. Have you popped into some cool restaurants? Like, what are you up to?
I love Houston. I've been coming here since 2004 when I used to open up for Gabrielle Iglesias. And then I started headlining at the Laugh Stop. The Improv original. And I even went to a speakeasy here in Houston back in the day. I guess, I don't know, I guess somebody told me there's no zoning laws in Houston.
No.
That's correct.
So you could open up a chicken shack next to a daycare. And I went to I went to an underground party on Holmes Road like 20 years ago.
Wow.
And it was, whoa. It was all nighter. Like it was like Vegas in there. Like you couldn't even tell what time it was because it was lit up perfectly. Mm-hmm. And it was wild. There was a woman there and she was selling food because they had a pool table, they had partying, they had a DJ, and there was a woman there and she had southern Louisiana food. I never had that. Mm-hmm. And my friend was happy because he wasn't really partying like I was. He goes, man, you ever had Boudin balls? And I said, never knew what that is. Yep. And there were these rice balls with meat in them, and you dip them in gravy.
Yeah, Houstonians love food. So, we are kind of a foodie.
His bit on taking all the kids to McDonald's, hysterical.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You were here, you're talking about a time 20 years ago, but your life has changed quite a bit. You have a wife now.
I'm sober now, Hollywood sober.
Hollywood
what does
sober.
That
what
mean?
does that mean?
I don't drink or do anything else.
Nothing.
Just green juice.
Yeah, whatever. I only do stuff that's legal.
Right.
It's got to be
prescribed by a doctor.
Good for you. Feel better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm vegan. People don't believe me. I'm vegan.
Really?
I don't eat meat. I don't eat dairy products. People look at me. What? You're vegan? What do you eat? Crops?
Well, as you say, so you're vegan. Is that like a conscious, like you for the animals, or is it for your health?
No.
What made you decide to go
for
vegan?
This 288 animal right here. I was lactose intolerant my whole life, but my mom never told me. She just kept feeding me, and I kept going to the restroom. And
it's a hard way to find out.
So then I started the Atkins diet, which was the what they call the keto diet now.
Yes, keto.
And I guess you're supposed to eat only protein. So long story short, a bunch of comics, we did it together on the road. We were just drinking Diet Cokes and beef patties and cheese. No water, no lettuce.
That sounds...
Just beef patties and cheese for a week. I was constipated. I had to go to a Lamaze class.
I bet.
So after that, after the
a Lamaze class?
After the colon cleanse, I was like, no more meat. no more anything, and then yeah, man, it was bad.
Have you seen a difference in your health?
Yes, I don't get heartburn as much.
Oh, yeah.
But I miss cheese. I love cheese. That was my main thing.
But you can have, cheese substitutes.
Yeah, but that stuff tastes like cheese if you forgot what cheese tastes like.
So okay.
I have a question. I want to ask you about the way you approach comedy is what I would think of as traditional. You go out on a stage, you're in charge, you tell funny stories from sort of your life and the way you grew up. That's sort of, to me, traditional. There's a lot of non-traditional now, like Matt Rife coming and interacting with the audience. What are your thoughts on where these people are coming from?
Oh, man, he's great at it. And there's a lot of people who are great at talking to the audience. Me, I'm not good at it.
No.
Because I sometimes I do a joke with the audience, and that joke is so funny that everything else I say after that is not funny as that. Right. I can't keep the momentum going. And I get in trouble a lot because I'm not a nice guy, so I try not to go for the hard insult on the people. Because I remember I was talking to a guy, and he told me that he was like an immigration lawyer, and then I forgot about him. He was a big guy. And then 30 minutes later, I come back and I ask his wife, "What do you do for a living?" She said, "I'm a certified dietitian at a hospital." But then I looked at her big husband, and I said, "Wow, I guess you don't take your work home. You're telling everybody else to drink water. You're giving this guy Hawaiian punch every morning."
He was an immigration lawyer.
You don't want to tick off the wrong people.
And then I just left it as that. But I could have went harder on him and her, but just went, oh wow. So I guess.
Yeah, you get a good laugh out of it, you move on, right?
Move on, man.
But you must really love telling those kind of stories about your life, and because that's what gets us through life. If you can't get a sense of humor, you're not going to get through this world.
No, man, you need laughter is the best medicine.
I've heard that.
But sometimes people do want that medicine,
Yeah.
They want a different medicine.
Oh, yeah, well, laughter's the best. That is for sure, especially when you come from East L.A.
Yes, man. I grew East Los Angeles, Boyle Heights, South Central, West Los Angeles, where I grew up.
Yeah.
But I love Los Angeles. I don't know anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, Houston, as people often say, Austin's very close to San Francisco, similar in vibe of San Francisco, LA, and Houston kind of has that. Well, we have the traffic.
Yeah, I see Houston more as Oakland.
Ooh, interesting.
Yes.
So, and you can lie if you want, but where are the best audiences found?
Houston.
Absolutely.
Because I've been coming here since 2004 when I took perform with Gabrielle Iglesias. Yeah. And I've never been to a show in Houston where it's been empty.
Yep. Oh.
Only the first time. When I was a young comic, all right? I didn't have an hour of material. And I got booked because they saw only 10 minutes of my stand-up on Showtime with Paul Rodriguez back in 96. So, 98, I get to do a show here at a urban club called Just Joking. And
how'd it go?
Oh, man. It was tough because it was during the Lakers finals. And it was a Sunday, Mother's Day. And I was on stage, and I could hear the ice melt. I could hear the AC vent. And when I got there, I saw two waitresses going home. They were like giving me a dirty look.
So what is your strategy, when you feel like you're out there and your jokes aren't just hitting?
Oh, man.
Well, they do now.
I move on to the next joke. Or sometimes, I just got to fool the audience. Like, I remember doing a show Thursday through Sunday, and the Thursday show is always like half. And I always open the show with, "Wow, man. Sorry about the attendance tonight, ladies and gentlemen, but the first show was sold out. I don't know why they added a second show. Welcome to the second show."
You losers.
That's
You should have been here first.
That's right. Felipe Esparza is a comedian, actor, and host of the podcast What's Up, Fool? Felipe, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thanks for having me. Hello, Houston. I made it.
That's right. And Felipe will be
H-Town.
performing. That's right. H-Town right here at NRG Arena as part of his At My Leisure tour.
It's not the stadium. It's the arena.
The arena.
I'm just making sure people understand that it's at the arena. So you'll fill that up maybe twice.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing a lot of people with me. Paul Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Concrete. Local comedian from San Antonio, Raul Sanchez. This band that plays Mexican music, but they do like they went viral for playing The Office
Oh,
theme
nice.
in
Yes,
Spanish.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And
Yeah.
and the Junkyard Dog from the show The Rock, Nate Jackson.
Love it. So coming up on Hello Houston, I sat down this morning with New York Times bestselling author Dr. Gabrielle Lyon for the first episode of Cold Coffee. Plus, we'll dive into our last-minute plans for the weekend. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, presenting Wagner's Tannhäuser in a production featuring tenor Russell Thomas on stage at Wortham Theater, now through May 11th. Tickets are available at hgo.org.
81 degrees at the University of Houston, partly cloudy, high of 84, looking at a low of 70, 20% chance of showers this afternoon. This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston, News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we'll premiere the first episode of Cold Coffee with best-selling author Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who's taking the internet by storm with her unique and cutting-edge ideas on how to stay young and strong at any age. I'm Celeste Díaz Schurman. We'll also have a rundown of all the big events happening in the Houston area with your last-minute plans. Plus, we dive into more of the top headlines of the day, from President Trump's executive orders on education to the state of Texas getting its own Doge. And we want to know your thoughts. So give us a call at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. Just go to houstonpublicmedia.org and click the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Federal authorities have arrested Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan. They're accusing her of obstructing an immigration arrest operation. NPR's Jasmine Gars with more.
Dugan, now in her 9th year as a Milwaukee County Circuit judge, is under federal investigation for allegedly helping an immigrant without legal status avoid arrest by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials. The incident occurred on April 18th. Agents attempted to arrest a Mexican citizen after a hearing in her courtroom. Dugan allegedly directed them to another judge's office and allowed the defendant to leave the courtroom through a side door. The man is now in custody. A spokesperson for the U.S. Marshals confirmed this morning's arrest. In a now-deleted post on X, FBI Director Kash Patel wrote, quote, "The judge's obstruction created increased danger to the public." Jasmine Garst, NPR News, New York.
Former Congressman George Santos has been sentenced to more than 7 years in prison for wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. The New York Republican was expelled from the House of Representatives in 2023 after he was investigated by an ethics committee and indicted on corruption charges. The Ukrainian capital is observing an official day of mourning for the lives lost when Russia carried out drone and missile attacks on Kyiv early yesterday. Officials say at least 12 people died, as many as 90 were injured. NPR's Joanna Kakissis says President Volodymyr Zelensky maintains Russian leader Vladimir Putin must be held to account in order for a peace deal to work.
Zelensky says his country wants peace. He has agreed to an unconditional 30-day ceasefire brokered by the U.S. last month, something Russia did not agree to. And Zelensky's team is finalizing a minerals deal that could make the U.S. a lot of money. So in return, Ukraine wants the U.S. to provide security guarantees so Russia does not invade their country again. But the Trump administration so far is only offering vague promises.
That's NPR's Joanna Kakissis reporting. Russian authorities confirmed that a senior general in the Russian armed forces was killed in an apparent car bombing outside his home in Moscow. More from NPR's Charles Maines.
Russia's investigative committee says the deputy chief of the Russian General Staff's main operational directorate, Lieutenant General Yaroslav Maskarik, was killed when a VW Golf parked outside his home exploded. Witness video appears to show a pedestrian walking by the vehicle as it erupts into a fireball. Investigators say they later found evidence of an explosive device packed with shrapnel and launched a murder investigation. In the wake of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, assassination attempts have been repeatedly carried out against Russian military officials, as well as pro-war nationalists and Kremlin-backed authorities in occupied Ukraine. Charles Maines, NPR News, Moscow.
The Dow's down 81 points at 40,013. It's NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. Tariffs on Chinese imports are hitting small businesses hard. And in Houston, one toy store owner says it's putting his future at risk. Miguel and Breeze tells us more.
Misfit Toys is a Houston business with 2 facilities. Owner Daniel Rivera says they are already being notified by their wholesalers to expect a price increase.
We've received very scary letters that say we're not going to pass any tariffs on to our customers now, but be prepared. And instead of a $25 Halloween mask and they want $50 now, I'm just going to say no.
Rivera says he placed a big order of Transformers for a new store expansion. However, he was forced to cancel it.
And that uncertainty, of course, turns a $10,000 order into a $0 order.
Rivera says he is currently looking for inventory in the United States while waiting for the tariff war to end. I'm Miguel Ambries, News 88.7.
And the clock is ticking on a high-priced scavenger hunt going on to find rare coins in Houston. The hunt is part of U.S. Coins and Jewelry's celebration of their 40th anniversary and more. Owner Kenny Duncan Jr. explains how it came about.
We teamed up with Houston Find the Cash. I spoke to them probably 6 months ago and wanted to do a collab during National Coin Week, which is this week, and wanted to put some really cool gold coins around the city of Houston and educate some of our customers and followers about all things gold and all things rare coins.
Today is the final location of the last hidden coin, and it will be revealed on the Instagram pages of U.S. Coin and Jewelry or Houston Find the Cash. All 4 gold coins, worth a total of $10,000, were stashed at locations all around the city. The NFL drafts resumes tonight with round 2 and 3 taking place in Green Bay. The Texans did not make a first-round selection last night, instead trading their pick to the New York Giants. The team will have 5 picks today, starting with the second selection in round 2. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
It's been a zippy Friday, Frank.
It's been a fun hour.
It has been.
Jazz Festival is really interesting. Free on Sunday.
Free on Sunday at the Post.
And then Felipe Esparza.
Esparza. He was hilarious.
He's very, very funny.
Yes, he was very funny.
So that's nice. I talked yesterday about the Alzheimer's gala that I went to.
Yes, how was it?
It was really great. And the doctor that spoke really believes in the next 5 years we will have not so much a cure but a treatment. Just like you take a pill for high blood pressure or take something every day for diabetes or high cholesterol, that there will really be something that you can do, especially if we detect it through blood tests at an early age. Yeah. So the earlier you detect it, the better. In the meantime, his advice is to stay active physically and keep your mind sharp.
And it's amazing how many times that remedy, that therapy of staying active to stay sharp, I mean, you can pretty much apply that to any part of your life, I feel like. Don't you agree, Frank?
And even if it doesn't stave off Alzheimer's forever, it'll keep you healthier all the way through.
Yes. I mean, I had a conversation that you guys will hear in a little bit all about muscle-centric health.
I was reading the book, and it's terrific. Ernie Manouse is not with us today.
Yes.
But I just got a text from him. I asked, his mother fell.
Yes.
And so he was in the emergency room with her.
Do we have an update from
We
Ernie?
do.
Okay.
First of all, a big bump on the head's going to be sore. But mom is fine, indestructible, no fractures, no broken bones, no hemorrhage. The woman is amazing, even if the doc said he wants her to slow it down.
Oh, that's great. Ernie, thank you for the update. We're thinking about you, and we can't wait for you to be back on Monday. And we also want to thank you that you are watching us. If you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for clicking in, and as well listening on 88.7. And don't forget to like and subscribe us on hellohouston.org. And you are also always welcome to join the conversation. In fact, we love when you join the conversation at 713-440-8870 or shoot us an email. We love reading those. talk@hellohouston.org. And Frank, what about the weekend? What are we looking at?
Partly cloudy to mostly sunny. So if you're going to go to the Jazz Fest, take your sunscreen with you or whatever you're going to do outdoors, because it's going to be enough sunshine to be a bit bright.
Okay.
85 degrees all the way through.
Beautiful. And the other thing is on YouTube, you can leave in the moment comments. And we just got one from Gerald who says, Ernie, hope your mom feels better soon.
Yes. This is interesting. We're talking about school vouchers earlier that are going to go to the governor.
Right.
This whole thing. Ernesto from the Museum District says he has a son with disabilities. We had him in private school because we thought it'd be better than public school, but he wasn't advancing there. So we hired a tutor, but we were paying more for the tutor than the tuition. Since there wasn't any accommodation for him there, we moved him back to public school, but I don't think either option is perfect, and neither help to advance my son.
It's tough.
It is
tough out there.
And then there's another, you see that one from Greg from North Houston. It's time for Houston and surrounding areas to secede from Texas and take care of ourselves. I think that's the best idea. But I will tell you, Harris County, the population of Harris County at over 4 million, if we were a state, just Harris County, we would be the 25th state in the union. How about that? We're bigger than 24 other states.
Wow.
We're bigger than Oklahoma, more population than Arkansas, more population than Louisiana, than Mississippi. Goes on and on. Our county alone should have 2 electoral votes.
Yeah, I mean, that is incredible. And not just that, when you look at our county, we're so diverse.
We are the most diverse in the country.
So we have a lot to be proud of.
I love it here.
I do too.
I mean, it's not just the food, although that's pretty good too.
That is pretty good. But you know what? Let's get into today's topics. And we are going to start with Texas lawmakers are looking to ban the use of face masks during protests. Senate Bill 2876 would increase the criminal penalty for participating in a riot while wearing a mask or other face coverings. If passed, it would be a misdemeanor crime to be masked with the intent to conceal your identity during a riot. Bill's sponsor, Senator Brian Hudges, wrote in a description of the bill that the use of face coverings during incidents of disorderly conduct has become increasingly common and believes that protesters wear masks with the specific intent to cause harm and chaos while avoiding accountability. The bill passed unanimously in a committee last week and could soon head to the Senate floor. It has been hit with opposition. Senior staff attorney at the ACLU of Texas, Brian Klosterboer, tells Axios that it would be impossible to prove. He also calls the bill vague and says it would be based entirely on speculation. Protesters, particularly those showing support for Palestinians, are facing heightened risk, including arrest, deportation threats, and student visa cancellations. So masks may be essential in this case. Does this bill make sense to you? Are you in favor or against banning the uses of masks during protest? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
I tell you what, first of all, I want to go back to the word riot. Yeah. What defines a riot? Mm-hmm. Because a peaceful protest is being on the side of the road, standing on one of those bridges on 59. Mm-hmm. That's not a riot. That's a peaceful assembly, and that's constitutional.
And it's interesting that you're honing in on that word, Frank, because I think so oftentimes when people are presented with the lawmakers present these bills, a lot of the concern that we've seen throughout Hello Houston is surrounded by verbiage, how vague it is, how there's so many loopholes for interpretation, and it really doesn't allow for the safeguards that people want to see in policy.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think a riot must have to involve some kind of physical violence. Mm-hmm. Either a weapon is involved or a fist fight. That might be considered a riot.
What about vandalism?
That would be considered, I think, a riot. And whenever there's harm being done, but there's no harm being done when you're carrying a sign or you're saying words. You're allowed to free speech, and a sign is a form of free speech.
So should people be allowed to wear masks during?
You mean be allowed to wear masks?
Masks, or be penalized
because they're trying to
they're
conceal their
wearing
identity.
A mask because they're trying to conceal
if it's
their identity.
peaceful. If it's a riot is different.
Right.
I mean, it's the reason that a bank robber wears a mask and has a gun with him.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And says, "I want your money," and we get robbed usually by people who are trying to conceal their identity. So if there's physical harm involved, even if it's to a car, then I think that masks could be considered a bad part of that.
Right. And if you really think about why would somebody be wearing a mask,
right.
It's because they feel ill and they don't want to, get somebody else sick.
But yet they're going to go to all these people with,
and outside.
Yeah, stay at home if you feel sick.
If you don't go.
That's kind of
I
weak.
think about, the reason somebody would wear a mask, a medical mask,
to a riot. I mean, to a riot or let's just say to a protest. A peaceful protest. And everyone wants to wear these masks to a peaceful protest. I think they should be allowed.
Right.
Because what's happening is they're being identified and they're being evicted from the country based on the protest. And I think whether you like it or not, people have fought and died for their right to protest.
I don't think the issue is necessarily the protest
Oh,
or
I think
the riot.
it is. I think it's the subject.
The issue is people concealing their identity.
But if their identities
during those times.
Okay, let's say John goes to protest and is in favor of Palestine. And he goes to a pro-Palestinian
protest
assembly, peaceful protest. And then he's here on a student visa, an F1, and he's considered now a possible threat. And he is evicted, and his visa is taken away. And you don't even have to be convicted to have that visa taken. All you need is an arrest.
Well, it's happening.
It's happening. Hundreds of thousands of people are here. And by all counts, 1,000 have now been evicted by this.
Wow. And we have a call, and we want to remind you that you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. We have a call from JP from the Galleria. Hi, JP. Thanks for joining Hello Houston.
Thank you so much. I have a comment concerning the face masks.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Policemen get to wear face masks. Why can't the rioters?
Absolutely. The ICE agents are wearing face masks when they're going and pulling people off the streets. And there's video of that.
Is that your only comment, JP? Asking about...
That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving us a call today.
No, that's right. A lot of people wear masks. I'm more concerned about trying to identify people that are protesting something you don't like or agree with. And that's the nature of our country. I mean, I remember back going to Boston in 1985, my first time to Boston, and the vegetarians were protesting McDonald's because of meat. And there were people protesting a movie that had just come out about Jesus.
Were they wearing masks?
They were not wearing masks. They were all protesting. But now, if you're but nobody said,
so what you're saying,
you're protesting against McDonald's, you're going to jail.
So what you're saying is that in today's day and age, if you protest something that seems to be going against
the political ideology of the government,
that you could be penalized to a different degree.
And that's not America.
No.
That's not the America I grew up in. We have Sandra from Clear Lake on masks. Sandra, what's your thought on this?
I think that everybody should wear a mask from now on.
That would do it, wouldn't it? Everybody wears a mask everywhere they go. Well, they do that in China because of the air pollution. They are wearing masks everywhere. So, yeah, let's all wear masks just like we did in 2020. And no one will know what we're doing or who we are. That's a good thought, Sandra.
Thanks,
Just
Sandra.
Dilutes the whole poison, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's one take for sure that you.
So have you had answered the question? What do you think?
I think that I don't know. I don't know what I think on this one.
Well,
I really don't know what I think about this one.
Do you think
because
people
I
should be arrested based on their political ideology?
No, absolutely not. But if we're looking at something, I think that if we're looking at it from we're going out and we are going to call awareness to a subject or an issue, a real issue that's happening, and why wear a mask?
Well, maybe it's pro-abortion.
Right. If it's pro-abortion,
and you want to go to a place where they, want to support abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Or you want to protest against abortion.
I guess my thought is
that's a very hot. That issue's been kind of gone the way of a lot of things.
I guess my thought is, why not show your face?
But,
if you
of course you should show your face and be proud of your thoughts and your beliefs. But if you are here on a visa and
right, and I understand
could be
that
ejected from the country based on that protest, then it's going to keep people from having constitutional rights.
I don't know. I don't necessarily think that people are going to stray away from protesting or calling awareness to their issues if they can't wear a mask.
We'll see.
We will see.
But I'm not sure this is even going to pass.
I don't know. It's an interesting one. And we want to hear from you. Thank you, JP and Sandra, for already calling us and letting us know your thoughts. You can give us a call at 713-440-8870. Frank, what do you got for us now?
Okay, this is a fun one for Friday. So this year marks a special year for the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps. I'm a Texas Admiral, by the way.
Yes.
As it celebrates 250 years of service to this nation. And for the first time ever, Fleet Week will be coming to Houston. Fleet Week, which has always been in New York City.
Yes.
Coming to Houston.
Okay, so now people, if you don't know what Fleet Week is.
Okay, Houston. First of all, Houston Mayor John Whitmire made the announcement on Facebook, posted alongside a video of him receiving confirmation that the Navy had accepted this invitation. So Fleet Week is an annual tradition of the United States Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard, where active duty ships dock in major cities for a week.
Wow.
The public has been able to tour these ships. The week is accompanied by other special events, such as air shows and military demonstrations. The public will also get to meet service members. Whitmire says this is not only the first time Fleet Week's been in Houston, but in Texas as well. Right now, exact date's not known, but Whitmire says it'll take place sometime in November.
So will they dock in?
I suspect, I was looking at a Google map. The port of Houston, and there was the cruise port of Houston that's been pretty much abandoned because all the cruise ships are going out of Galveston now.
Yeah.
There are no cruise ships that go out of the cruise port. Mm-hmm. I suspect that could handle a lot of them, along with the rest of the port of Houston. I don't know how many ships actually come with this. So we'll find out more details as it happens. But I think it's kind of a cool thing. So, especially if you like boats.
And it looks like we actually have a call right now from Victor from Katy, and he wants to talk about the topic we were talking about just earlier about masks. Yeah. Hi, Victor. Thanks for joining the conversation.
Thank you. Whatever happened to someone who goes on a protest, like let's say on the J6 group that went to Tourist Congress, and one was disguised as a shaman? Would that be considered part of covering your identity? Would that be considered into this new enactment that they're trying to make?
Wanting to conceal your identity?
Yes.
That's a great point, Victor. Thanks so much for giving us a call. I think Victor was saying basically, during the January 6th riot, there was a rioter who was dressed as a shaman, and he's making a point.
There were a lot of masks being worn.
That there were a lot of masks.
But I'll say this, the way they identified people at the time for breaking the law who were pardoned, but those who were breaking the law was because their identities were known. And if you're breaking the law, that's a riot. I get it. That was a riot.
They were entering the White House.
Right. The state capitol.
The state capitol, excuse me.
But yes, that was a riot. But again, as I said, I think a riot is when you are presenting physical harm or physical destruction to property. Peaceful assembly is a constitutional right. And you shouldn't, because you're doing that, and you're identified, you shouldn't be just stripped of your visa that you got, because getting a visa to this country is not easy.
And it's expensive.
It goes through the Department of Homeland Security.
Right.
You don't just get handed one at the border. It's tough
Right.
to
And I
get
think
one.
there's a lot of misconceptions right now about so
Everything.
many things.
Is anybody excited about Fleet Week?
Yeah, we want to hear about Fleet Week. Give us a
We're
call.
not talking about enemas. We're talking about Fleet Week.
713-440-8870. And you know what? I'm excited about our next segment because it's going to be very interesting. And
I can't wait to hear your talk with this lady.
That's right. So coming up on Hello Houston, we talk cold coffee. I had coffee this morning with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. She was here in studio and she's taking the internet by storm with her unique and cutting edge ideas on how to stay young and strong at any age. And you're going to hear that next. And we're also taking your calls on any of today's topics at 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Imagine two friends getting together.
So what's happening in Congress?
Well, this is something that is going to be tough to defend in an election year. And that's assuming it even passes, which it might not.
Imagine you could listen in.
And then what about the Senate? The bills are just rocketing out of the chamber.
Have they gone too far? The House might say, well, wait a minute.
Well, you can. Party Politics with Brandon Rottinghouse and Geronimo Cortina. Fridays at 7:30 p.m. on News 88.7, at 8 on TV8, and on your favorite podcast platforms.
Support comes from the Houston Zoo, presenting its annual Feast with the Beasts. Cuisine from a number of Houston's diverse eateries, animal experiences, live music, and more. May 2nd. More at houstonzoo.org. Support comes from LaPorte CPAs and Business Advisors, an independent accounting and business advisory firm serving clients for more than 75 years. With 190 employees across offices in Houston, New Orleans, and other locations. More information at laporte.com. Support comes from Houston Public Works, with tips to prevent clogged pipes, backups, and unexpected expenses, like never pouring fats, oils, or greases down the drain, but letting them cool and tossing them in the trash. More at protectourpipes.org. Support comes from John Moore, helping with plumbing, electrical, and air conditioning repairs, including out-of-warranty units since 1965. Details at 730-2525 or at johnmooreservices.com.
You know how important trusted news is for your ability to make informed decisions. That's why News 88.7 is your station.
At Houston Public Media, we give you the facts clearly and honestly so you can make decisions about your life.
Don't let anything stand in the way of your right to stay informed. Donate today to ensure that trusted news remains free and available for everyone in our community.
Give right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to Hello Houston. So many times I have had people tell me, one day you are going to miss this moment. This moment is being a mom of young kids. It's navigating a career and a spouse's career. It's trying to stay relevant and on top of life. And well, life can feel like a lot when you feel like you're getting old. So on today's first episode of Cold Coffee, I had my coffee this morning with founder of Muscle-Centric Medicine and New York Times bestselling author of Forever Strong, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. She was here in studio and she's taking the internet by storm with her unique and cutting-edge ideas on how to stay young and strong at any age. Gabrielle, the term muscle health, it sounds very simple, but tell me more about the term and why you focus on it specifically.
I love that question. And it's actually a way of framing it would be muscle-centric health or muscle-centric medicine. It is the idea that skeletal muscle is the pinnacle of health and wellness. It is actually the largest organ. It's an organ system in the body, and it really determines everything about how we age. The diseases of aging and also the idea of obesity, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, even PCOS, which is the #1 cause of infertility in the world, it begins in skeletal muscle first.
That's incredible. And you're talking about aging. And since we are in a safe space, I am going to be turning 40 at the end of this year. And I am absolutely petrified because everything that you hear and see about over the hill is connected to specifically how muscle and bone density starts to immediately decline and drastically, and then it just continues to get worse. How can we retain muscle mass as we age without absolutely having to live in the gym 24 hours a day?
Well, the great news is it is not inevitable. The idea that skeletal muscle mass must decline is not actually true. Certainly, the older we get, in your 80s and 90s, there is a natural progression that happens, and we've all seen this idea. But weakness is optional. And when we think about these body composition changes that happen that people often associate with menopause, it can be just as simple as redefining what we value in terms of habits and standards. So, skeletal muscle, by doing resistance training, have a diet optimized for protein, you can prevent a lot of what you see. One of the things that happens is we become less active. We prioritize other things. But if you are continuously stimulating muscle, then that decline that we hear about does not have to happen.
Right. So you're talking about protein, you're talking about being active. And so building muscle, a lot of times we think it sounds simple. Okay, I'm going to hit my protein, levels, and I'm also going to be working out. But why does it feel so hard? And how important is mindset when we're looking at truly building that muscle-centric health that you're talking about?
It's a bidirectional relationship. A strong body begets a strong mind, and a strong mind begets a strong body. It is simple. We really overcomplicate things, and we prioritize other forms of activity. And listen, cardio, Pilates, yoga, they're all wonderful. But as we age, there is no replacement for doing resistance training. And a lot of women will say, you know what? I am so afraid of getting bulky.
Right.
I don't want to train because if I train, either I'm going to get bulky or that's too heavy. How much does your toddler weigh?
Probably, I would say like 60 pounds. Like yeah.
Do you pick him up?
All the time.
And you wouldn't think twice about it?
No.
But if you went to the gym and you saw a kettlebell that was 60 pounds, you would think twice about picking that up.
Yeah.
But these are strong girl numbers.
Right.
And you can absolutely do more than you think you can. And everybody listening can do more than they think they can. And we've disassociated with why we exercise and life. And we're not training to become better at exercise. We're training to become better at life. And so that we age on our own terms. And it doesn't have to be hours at the gym. I train 3 days a week with weights. On the fourth day, on a Saturday, I might do, which you should come.
Yes, I would love to.
We could totally film it. It would be amazing.
Yeah.
The fourth day, I do some kind of high intensity, but it is all scalable. But I don't replace weight training with other activities.
Right. So, so we're talking a little bit about the actual working out process and the mindset that goes with it. When I wake up, I want to feel strong. I want to feel sharp. I want to feel like I'm going to tackle my day. But oftentimes, the first thing that goes into my mouth is coffee.
And that's okay.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah.
so how important is the first thing in the morning when we wake up? How important is what we put in our mouth?
That is a wonderful question, and here's why. Because as women, we're really busy. And that first meal of the day is actually the most important. The first and the last meal, I cover this in my book, Forever Strong, which is actually why I wrote the book, was to simplify strategies for people. When you wake up after an overnight fast, your muscle is primed for nutrition. That first meal of the day doesn't have to be right when you wake up, but it should have between 30 and 50 grams of dietary protein.
Okay.
You stimulate muscle from the protein that you eat. There are two ways to stimulate that tissue, and it's through resistance training or dietary protein.
Okay.
And when you do this, you prioritize protein first thing. You stop that catabolic action that's happening in an overnight fast, which means you are no longer taking away from your muscle, because your muscle is required for the rebuild and repair process that is always happening. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it is primed in the morning to receive nutrients. And when you prioritize protein, well, you protect muscle, but you also no longer have to depend on willpower. So when you come in to the studio and you see a donut, mm-hmm. you are satiated. You're already full from the protein that you've had. And the average woman has about 68 grams of protein a day. I recommend, and the science supports, closer to 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of target body weight.
So that might be a lot for some women. And does it, I mean, that is what you think we should be following?
Well, it's what the science shows.
Right.
The current recommendation for dietary protein has not changed in the last 50 years. And that means one of two things. Number one, that we haven't gotten any new science, or number two, that the recommendations have not caught up with where the science is.
Right.
And we know that if you undereat dietary protein, that you cannot keep up with the rebuild and repair processes in the body. The body requires 250 to 300 grams of protein a day for turnover of all tissues. Your body replaces itself 4 times a year. And that is why we need protein. It's the most important essential macronutrient. We actually need more of it as we age, not less.
So is all protein created equally?
No, it's not. And you're smiling because you know that this, this question is very heated.
It is.
Nutritional science is a highly discussed and debated topic.
Yeah.
There are 2 types of protein. There are high quality proteins and there are low quality proteins. Mm-hmm. This is purely based on the amino acid content. Amino acids are the building blocks that make up various proteins. The difference is in a high quality protein, it has all the amino acids necessary for your body and your muscle this is important, in the appropriate amounts. So for example, you could have 4 ounces of beef or 4 ounces of chicken, and that would provide you with the essential amino acids. These are the amino acids that you must get from the diet. Your body cannot make it. A lower quality protein comes from a plant-based source. For example, do you remember when people were talking about quinoa?
Yes, it was like quinoa, and and we have those fads. We'll have quinoa, and
right.
we'll also have celery juice, or Brussels sprouts went through their had their moment.
I'm glad I missed that one. I wasn't sure of that. I'm glad that skipped over me. Yeah. But quinoa, and I was, I moved here from New York City. Now I live full time in Houston.
That's right. You heard it first.
It's
right
amazing.
Cool
and
coffee.
You would go to the juice bars, and it would promote quinoa as a high protein meal. Okay. In order to get enough quinoa to equal a small chicken breast, it would take 6 cups of quinoa to equal the same amino acid profile that is needed for muscle health. There are other plant-based proteins like soy, which have a higher essential amino acid content, but this is a very important concept for people to understand. And the way I like to think about it is plants and animals are both really important in the diet. We're omnivores. We need fiber, we need phytonutrients. Those mostly come from plants. Mm-hmm. Protein is not ideally sourced from plants because, you mentioned menopause, because of the amount of carbohydrates that ride along with it, mm-hmm. and calories. So if you want to create a diet that works, it should have both plants and animals. But if one is able to prioritize the high quality proteins, and this can be eggs and it can be fish, things of that nature. It doesn't have to be beef.
Right. So I have said this on the show before. I am very interested in bodybuilding. And part of that is a little bit of the discipline that comes with it. And then, again, full disclosure, a little bit is purely the aesthetic of it, that higher muscle, lower fat type of body. And it very much, again, is about that aesthetic. But how is your philosophy different?
Well, I believe that obesity is a symptom of unhealthy skeletal muscle.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw something out that I have never talked about publicly. Mm-hmm. We have this concept that body fat is most relevant. that once someone has 30% body fat, that they are unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, it is the fat in the muscle. For example, there's a difference between a fillet and a ribeye. And when an individual is sedentary, fat builds up within skeletal muscle. During aging and sedentary behavior, there's no such thing as a healthy sedentary person. And when you recognize skeletal muscle as the primary focal point for health and wellness, a few things happen. You talk about bodybuilding, and I'm thrilled to know that you love mindset, these mindset conversations. Well, if you train and you focus on muscle, number one, it's something that is under your voluntary control.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things in life that we cannot control, but strength and muscle, we certainly can control that. And that's where true health starts. When someone goes to the doctor and they see that they have elevated triglycerides or elevated glucose or high levels of insulin, you will often hear the term metabolic syndrome. Have you heard that term before?
Yes, metabolic syndrome, yeah.
Metabolic syndrome. That is often thought to ride along with obesity as the cause. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's unhealthy skeletal muscle first.
And so for those that might not know what metabolic syndrome is, what is that exactly?
Elevated triglycerides.
That's right, you just mentioned it.
High blood pressure, high insulin, high glucose.
A lot of what I think people in America experience.
Over 70%.
Wow. So the global health and wellness industry is projected to reach $9 trillion by 2028. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you wish would just absolutely go away?
Protein is bad for us.
Yeah.
Number one, red meat is bad for us. The science does not support this. If you look at high quality randomized controlled trials, the science does not support the information that we're hearing. And the new dietary guidelines, 2025 dietary guidelines, for example, it will say that a food would not be considered healthy, or a diet is not considered healthy if it is greater than 10% saturated fat. But if we take it one step further, let's say you and I have a diet that's 1,200 to 1,500 calories. And my husband, who you met, is a former Navy SEAL. He's a very large human. He might have a 4,000 calorie diet.
He's a very fit human.
He is.
If I may say so.
But if his diet, if we talk about some of the biggest myths, according to the guidelines, he can have 44 grams of saturated fat and be perfectly healthy. Whereas if we go above 15 grams of saturated fat, then our diet would be considered unhealthy. And so if we believe that saturated fat is unhealthy, then we have to recognize what's the number. Mm-hmm. Is it 44 grams? Is it 15 grams? Or is it that these guidelines are perpetuating an ability to weaponize food? Mm-hmm. And what do I mean by that? Would you consider egg healthy?
I would think so, yeah.
Egg is a very healthy food. It has bioavailable protein, choline, fat-soluble vitamins. It has 18% saturated fat. Therefore, egg would not be considered a healthy food.
That is so interesting.
And we have to really take a step back. And when we think about designing a diet, we have to really question what information that we are getting and if it makes sense.
And I think that we can apply those things to so many areas of our life.
Absolutely.
What information are we getting and how do we apply it to our life?
And what is the science?
And what is the science?
You know, show me the science. Where did 10% saturated fat come from? Right. You will not get an answer.
Right. So moving to your book, Forever Strong, a new science-based strategy for aging well. What are the key research components you have found? I mean, we're talking about the Muscle-Centric, that support your approach. And what are the key takeaways you want people listening to this right now to know?
Yes. The key takeaways are the following. Muscle is the focal point for health. It is your metabolic engine. It is where you store carbohydrates. It is where when you go to the doctor and you have fantastic triglycerides, fantastic blood glucose, amazing insulin, that means that your muscle is healthy. Mm-hmm. Muscle is your body armor. We are all going to face aging challenges. Aging is inevitable. Skeletal muscle is your body armor. That is what protects you. That is where you pull from nutrients to rebuild and repair your body. Mm-hmm. You must choose a diet which is optimized for protein and a lifestyle which is optimized for hard work through resistance training to age well. There is no way around it. There are no replacements, and aging is coming for all of us, God willing.
Well, I can't have this conversation without asking you about Ozempic.
I'm so glad you are.
And, your thoughts on that.
I don't know if I told you this, but I did my fellowship at WashU in nutritional sciences and geriatrics. I spent 2 years as a research fellow as well as a geriatrician. And I ran a weight loss clinic. Ozempic and these GLP-1s are more effective than anything and any medication that we have ever seen ever. I think that there is absolutely a place for them. They do not inherently destroy muscle. In fact, when you utilize dosing that is personalized, which in our clinic we use personalized dosing, you can get results that lower inflammation, that lower body fat, that help maintain muscle, that help treat and reframe people's obsession with food and even alcohol. These drugs, I believe, are very safe and effective and are the future. They're not going anywhere.
So, Gabrielle, would you say that people have to stay on them forever, though?
No.
How does that work?
We treat patients all the time. We have hundreds of patients, and we will put them on a microdose of Ozempic or tirzepatide, and they come off. It helps give them a boost, restart their metabolism, and we are able to titrate them off. When you have proper diet and lifestyle as the focal point, as your standard, forget goals.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not talk about goals. Goals come and go, but standards, they always remain. And when you are the type of person that gets up and chooses strength and chooses a diet that supports strength and aging, then you build a foundation that you age on your own terms.
So where can people and where should people start?
Everybody eats. You have to get nutrition right. And that is prioritizing, if the listener or the viewer does nothing else, start your day with 30 to 50 grams of protein. That's two scoops of a protein shake. You know what? I take that back. How about one scoop of a whey protein shake? You start your day with protein and you bookend your day with protein. And that could be salmon, it could be turkey, it could be fish. Do those two things. It is the thing that we all do, which is eat. Nail that, and then come back and talk to me.
How can people find out more about you and your book and your information?
They can go to our website, which is drgabriellelyon.com. We have a massive podcast. We have the second largest medical podcast in the country that really discusses misinformation and information, and that's the Dr. Gabrielle Lyon Show. I'm very active on Instagram. We have a great free newsletter that offers so much information. My book, our YouTube, our X, you name it, we're there.
And she's right here in Houston. Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, the founder of Muscle-Centric Medicine and New York Times bestselling author of Forever Strong. Thank you for joining me today on Cold Coffee.
Thank you, Celeste.
Dr. Gabrielle Lyon and I spoke earlier today for the first episode of Cold Coffee that you just heard, and you can hear the rest of my conversation on YouTube, where I asked Dr. Lyon and discussed kids' nutrition. Coming up on Hello Houston, we will be taking more of your calls that are currently holding right now, and it's Friday. We've got you covered from places to go, people to see, and where to eat during our Last Minute Plan segment, coming up after this break. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Matt Harrop. There's been a lot of news to cover in Houston over the last few months. Keep listening to Houston Public Media for the latest, and if you've got a car, truck, boat, or RV you don't need anymore, donate it to the station. It could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. The donation process is easy for you, and we'll pick up your vehicle in any condition. Here's how to get started. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org/cars to learn more. Thank you.
On Tuesday, the Supreme Court heard a case that could hand parents with religious objections a lot more control over what their kids learn in the classroom, or, more specifically, what they don't learn. Today, my colleague Adam Liptak explains how a case about children's picture books has broad implications for schools across the country. I'm Rachel Abrams. That's Today on the Daily. from the New York Times.
Your right to know what's really going on in our world depends on more than just great journalism. It depends on your participation.
Houston Public Media is funded by Houstonians for Houstonians. 80% of our budget comes directly from you, our community.
That's how trusted information stays free and accessible. No ads, no shareholders, just clear and careful reporting.
Protect your right to stay informed by visiting houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from Roco, closing its 20th season with Optimistic, led by Alastair Willis, featuring Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring and Vincent Gardner's Mancini mashup with Jazz Houston, April 26th. More at roco.org.
Support comes from Scan Health Plan, a not-for-profit Medicare Advantage plan that has been dedicated to the health and independence of their members since 1977. More information at scanhealthplan.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to Hello Houston.
Hello, Houston.
Just a reminder, Ernie will be back on Monday. Today it is Frank and I. And boy, Frank, did we hit a chord?
I think the mask issue probably has been the most active today.
Yes, absolutely.
You want to remind us of what that's all about?
Yep. Just to remind you guys, we were talking about Texas lawmakers are looking to ban the use of face masks during protests. That would be
during a riot.
Well, this says during protests. So
okay.
But Senate Bill 2876 would increase the criminal penalty for participating in a riot, there's the word, while wearing a mask or other face coverings. If passed, it would be a misdemeanor crime to be masked with the intent to conceal their identity during a riot.
And my objection is that they are trying to identify people that don't agree with the political ideology of any government.
That's right. And we have a call right now from Dinah from Sugarland on this topic. Dinah, thank you for joining the conversation.
Dinah, are you there? Maybe Dina, D-I-N-A.
Dina?
Hello.
Hey, what's
Hi
up?
there. How are you?
Good. What are your thoughts?
I was just saying that I believe the double standard. Why are the ICE agents wearing
Dinah, I think we lost
we're in and out.
you.
Yeah, you can try calling us back.
Give us a call back.
I think we have Jeanette on the line from the Woodlands. Jeanette, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I don't care what people are wearing as long as they're behaving peacefully.
Right. And that's why I think it's important to note that it does say either riot, it seems to be.
But sometimes, people will be protesting peacefully, and then an outside source or even a governmental source will say that it's a riot, and it's actually not. So
Good point.
So I think if anyone's behaving erratically or violently in any situation, whether it's a riot, like a riot, people are behaving poorly, but if it's a peaceful protest, if there's some random person acting out, that person should be addressed. But as far as masks, anywhere in public, so if there's a peaceful protest, I know the verbiage says riot, but if there is a peaceful protest, if someone were to show up with the mask on, if they're immunocompromised and say they're protesting health issues that is directly impacting them, I mean, it could just go down a rabbit hole, because something that would start out as a peaceful protest sometimes can turn into a riot.
Yeah.
So there might be someone wearing a mask to a peaceful protest, things get out of control, then it's labeled as a riot, they're wearing the mask.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the ACLU agrees with you, and that's one of the problems with this whole idea is that it is a rabbit hole. It's so vague in so many levels. But I want to read some of these off-air comments.
Janet, thank you for giving us a call.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeanette. Dennis from Northwest Houston says, I'm in favor of face masks because of the risk of being doxxed.
Doxxed?
I'm not sure what that means. And then Robert from Baytown, I'm curious what their thoughts on face masks are when you consider that there are organizations like the KKK and also the Proud Boys. Fair?
Yes, and we want to remind you, you can join the conversation by giving us a call at 713-440-8870. We're currently looking at something that is clearly sparking a conversation amongst our listeners and our viewers about a potential bill.
And I think what's gotten in everyone's craw is this idea of we want to be able to identify those with whom we disagree. Mm-hmm. And if they're doing something that we don't like, then we need to know who they
identify them
are,
and go for them.
so we can do something. Now, if they're robbers and they're wearing a mask, that's why we don't want robbers to wear masks.
Right.
If they're shoplifting in Target and you're wearing a mask, that's bad.
Right. But there's obviously a very different intent there. And just
doxing
to clarify,
is exposing personal information about people.
Yes.
Yes.
Doxing. And, it's one of those things where I think that absolutely it's taking away the autonomy of people to decide how they want to present themselves, if they want to wear a mask, or reaching into something like, Jeanette was just saying what if somebody's actually immune compromised?
Well, there's that, but I just worry about our whole Bill of Rights and our Constitution being compromised by something like this. You should have a right to wear a mask wherever you want, as long as you are not committing a crime. Mm-hmm. And peacefully assembling and protesting is not committing a crime. A riot, on the other hand, if it turns into a riot, I get that. So that's when that's when you have hopefully some sort of security in the area to take care of something that might have that potential.
Well, again, join the conversation, 713-440-8870. Frank, you know what
it's
time
the weekend.
It's almost the weekend. 6 minutes for us.
What are you doing?
But we have last-minute plans.
What are you doing?
I'm actually heading to the LPGA tournament
nice.
This weekend.
To watch?
To watch.
That'll be fun.
It's
Where is it?
It's really fun. It's in the Woodlands.
Oh, that'll be beautiful.
So
a great weekend for it.
It's going to be beautiful.
Do I need to remind you about sunscreen?
Yes. Actually, everybody should be wearing sunscreen.
I'm busy. I'm going to an art opening tonight. In fact, the painter is a Cuban painter.
Beautiful.
So that's going to be this evening. And then tomorrow, the Victory Gala for Cancer. Mm-hmm. I'm an MC. Beautiful. And then I'm also going to be at the Polo Grounds for another fundraiser. I know. I don't like polo only because I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to go, but I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So it's sort of a social event. Look at all the beautiful outfits.
It's very much of a scene type place to be, Frank.
Okay, well, there you go. You'll see me there.
But you know what is also going on Friday today? Actresses, comedians, and former SNL cast members, you may or may not have heard of them. Tina Fey and Amy Poehler will be at Smart Financial Center in Sugar Land as part of their Restless Leg comedy tour. And then this is really cool. On Saturday, you can check out the 4th annual Houston Art Bike Parade and Festival. And this event takes place at the Fond Park and will start with a parade beginning around 10 a.m. that will feature hundreds of student-led art bike projects from local schools across the region. How cool is that?
That's very cool. That'll be fun.
I love that. And then on Sunday, Laura Wraith Fine Art will present a new solo exhibition called The Spirit of Savage Spaces, which features new works by Austin-based artist Meredith Prod. And the opening reception will be held from 12 to 3 p.m. on Sunday if you're wanting to get a little art in your life.
What else happens on Sunday?
The Post Jazz Festival is happening. And if you missed that segment, we had Alex Navarro on earlier with Sharon Montgomery discussing it's going to be a fabulous event. You can check that out on Sunday at the Post Houston.
Yep. Let me tell you this.
Yes.
I mentioned the art opening.
Yeah.
It's called Embracing the Unknown, Renier Ferrer.
Ooh.
Ferrer, Ferrer. Remember Jose Ferrer, the famous actor? Do you remember that name?
You know what? I like the Ferrero chocolates.
There you go. Well, anyway, it's on view, just in case anyone's interested. Art of the World Gallery, and it's opening. It opened last night, and it's until July 26th, but it's called Embracing the Unknown.
Yes, and then all weekend long, this is very cool. You can check out the Great Elephant Migration at Herman Park. This is a month-long public art installation that features 100 handcrafted life-size elephant sculptures on display.
Seen them. I saw them in New York City.
Did you? Okay.
I was going down for lunch in Tribeca, and they happened to be there. They went from here to Miami. There to Miami, and
New
now
York,
they're here.
Miami,
and they are
now
so cool.
They followed you, Frank. They followed you, and this is in the Museum District. And be sure to catch them in Houston before they move on to their next city. We don't want them to go, but they move on April 30th. So yeah,
and
lot
one more
of
thing,
art.
I mentioned the Polo Club.
Yeah.
So this is for the Career and Recovery Resources Inc. What they do is they help people a lot of times who are either homeless or incarcerated work incarcerated to find jobs. So it's like career and recovery.
And we also had a segment about that you can check out on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like us and subscribe and follow us on Instagram at hellohouston.show.
And hey, this is coming to an end, isn't it?
It's been a great week.
So sad. It's been and our fourth. We're officially a month.
And yeah, thank you, Houston, for joining us, and stay with us because that brings us.
I know. And by the way, shout out to Ernie's mom.
Shout out to Ernie.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of Hello, Houston. We want to thank you for listening and watching and liking and subscribing and being our friends. We are back on Monday with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.